Hello, folks. You're probably surprised right now. You're like, why are these two idiots here on your screen? Well,
You clicked on the fucking button, dumbass.
well, we told you that we were done with Modern Horror Tour Directors Month, and we told you we were doing Matt Damon. But in between those 2 months, we're doing a little roundup on our new movie releases that we watched in September. Specifically, movies that are either became available for the first time that way through theaters or streaming, or like lesser known movies that took till September to end up on streaming services, even if they received like a very small release earlier on. And we're just here to give you a quick rundown of what we watched. We decided to do this because we were killing ourselves attempting to review like 7 new movies a month, and it just became way too much. And we were like, we don't need to do 30 minutes on every movie that comes out. We can do a quick hitting, fast paced breakdown and give you some information about what's available and what you can go watch yourself.
Yeah, we still want to talk about new movies because you could also say we were killing ourselves doing this, so we just stopped reviewing it because it doesn't really matter. But we do enjoy talking about the new releases.
Absolutely,
we don't get to do it that much since our show is mostly based on past release.
Yeah, absolutely. We love to talk about the new movies. We just wanted to do it in a way that was, I think, not only easier for us to produce, but also I think as an audience, more manageable to watch one video where we tell you about 7 movies that came out in September that you then could go access either on streaming services or in theaters.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do, really simply, we saw some movies that the other one didn't see, so we're going to do those first. We'll jump back and forth, keep it as no spoilers as possible. We may do some small details. I'm not going to, if you're one of those people who is super militant about spoilers where they consider anything to be a spoiler, maybe not the episode for you, but we're going to try to keep it from spoiling any kind of plot stuff. And then at the end, we have 2 movies that we both saw that are now available. We're going to do it by release date. We'll do the ones that we individually saw first, and then the ones that we saw together after. All right. Zach, we're going to start with you and the newest entry in the MCU, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, which is currently in theaters and was released on September 3rd.
Yeah, both of mine that I've seen that you haven't seen are in theaters movies. Because you're huddling in at home for the most part. But I ventured out to my local art house, not a joke, literally my local art house, to see Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. The one movie that they're like, we need at least need that Marvel money, so we can then get language lessons in Titan on the side. So I saw Shang-Chi. It's fun. I have a story that I am going to say because it's more fun than the movie itself.
Do it.
But Shang-Chi, its main problem is what I think is going to be part of the Marvel problem moving forward with where they kind of took this universe, especially post Loki, which is like 75% exposition because the mythology is kind of like so dense that they just like every character has to spend a couple scenes explaining to kind of find your ground. But I will say the cast is charming. I think they fit right in tonally to the MCU. They're going to be, nice, likable characters for us to follow in the next generation. The action scenes, especially for the first half, when it kind of stays still more grounded and much more connected to kind of classic martial arts movies, is very engaging, very exciting, and holds its own separate from Marvel movies. And I mean, you get to see great actors of the Hong Kong and Chinese tradition. With Tony Leung, I cannot pronounce his name right. Sorry, Tony Leung, right? And
I think it's
Long, thank you. And Michelle Yeoh, who I just adore.
Wong Kar-wai, Wong Kar-wai muse Tony Leung.
Yeah, and just really,
sexy
guy brings a lot of great grief, and like moody, leering into the in Marvel universe in a way that I don't think anyone would have expected 12 years ago that Tony Leung would have been in a Marvel movie. But it happens. It's what you got to do now to keep the meat on the kitchen table. But Michelle Yeoh, who has always played more with mainstream movies, she has done tons of blockbusters. Just always great to see. Another one who just adds a level of credibility to these types of movies. And if I had to listen to 10 minutes of exposition, I want it from Michelle Yeoh.
Yes.
Here's my Shang-Chi story before I move on.
Go ahead.
This is one of my favorite things that's happened this month. So during the movie, and there's a few other people in the movie, right at the last credits, this older couple comes in, and woman very loud. They're talking about they're vaccinated, other things. I don't know. Didn't really bug me because once the movie started, when they talked, it was all kind of like it was sparse throughout the movie. Like every 15 minutes, maybe she said something a little loud, but it was always really funny and endearing. It was like one of the big action scenes on train that gets talked about a lot. She's like, "Yeah, this is my type of movie." It was very, very humorous. I mean, at the end, during the post-credit scene, I see her explaining to the guy that this is connected to the Marvel universe. So he had no idea what this movie was or what it belonged to. And after the movie goes, the woman's gone, and just the man's there, and he comes up to me and is like, I'm going to make up her name as Janice because that's just what her name should be. And he goes, "I really apologize for Janice. I know she was speaking too loud." And I threw my mom under the bus. I'm like, my mom speaks so loud. I'm used to it. It's not a big deal. And he's like, "Yeah, she's a lot of fun. We just met in the ticket line, and they just hung out in this movie together and talked the whole time." So I like this new old couple movie things that you just meet up, find a stranger in the lobby, and "Do you want to see Shang-Chi with me?" And then they go together. The guy did follow me all the way to the car, talking to me about whatever mountain climbing documentary I haven't heard of at the theater. He said I'm more of an art house guy. So I think he's just really finding all the movie friends he can have. But that story just kept growing to me and caught me way off guard that they didn't even know each other.
That is interesting. I want to ask you a couple quick questions and then we'll move on. First
about
off,
Shang-Chi?
Yeah, about Shang-Chi.
What about the old guy I met? We'll call him Jerry.
I think Jerry. I think we got all the Jerry we need for now. From what I hear, from what I've heard, and the non-spoiler discussion, this movie falls into a lot of the traps of just comic book movies in general. Like the third act is supposedly sort of a CGI crap fest that we've seen in 20 other movies. Yeah. Would you say that this movie falls into not only the whole of exposition, but also into just the problems that seem to plague comic book movies throughout the ages?
I definitely agree, even though I feel like it shouldn't, because without trying to spoil it, the pieces at play are, I think, inherently a little more different and more interesting, but they somehow still kind of put it with too much Marvel polish on it.
CGI battle in the third act.
Yeah, and the CGI thing, and you kind of you lose the action a lot. You lose the place. That don't really have great idea of what's happening. We talked in other movies about the geography of action, always understanding, what was happening. Yeah. And this does lose that with them. Yeah, the CGI. I was having a little friendlier on those parts than most people, and I think half of the climax I'm still really into, but does just go too far and for way too long.
Yeah.
Especially when the rest of the action was, I said, much more grounded.
Well, the problem is that classic martial arts, Asian cinema action is just fundamentally different from what the MCU has done even from the beginning. There's just a completely different scale, and martial arts action is often shot very close. MCU action is often shot quite far away and kind of more expansive. The final question I have for you is: you liked Black Widow more than I did. Where does Shang-Chi rank up against Black Widow of the two MCU movies released this year?
I'm reaching a point where they're just all the same to me.
Are they all just kind of
another pleasant addition to the MCU that I care about to an extent and will watch every movie, but it doesn't subvert or enhance what I expect from those movies anymore. So it's hard to get. I think it gave it the same rating as 7, and I think with time I'll probably appreciate Shang-Chi more. I think there is a little more growth to the universe that movie provides, and a movie is not inherently good because of diversity, but when you earn it, they earn the usage of the culture within the film. It comes off naturally, I think does add something, because there's kind of characters in the world we haven't seen before in the universe, so it does enhance the movie, I think, a little bit over Black Widow.
Yeah. I think if anyone flashes back to our Black Widow discussion, Zack's entire MCU ranking is 4 movies at the top, 2 movies at the bottom, and everything else in the middle.
Yeah.
It's a lot of stuff in the middle. I do think also Shang-Chi probably suffers from the fact that the 10 rings have been introduced at some point in the universe. So they sort of have to not only do exposition for their own world, but also
explain
retcon how this current movie fits into a MCU universe.
I think they do that stuff pretty well and pretty humorously in some aspects.
I'm sure, but it's also, that's a lot to put on a movie when it comes out as an origin story. It's like, hey, you also have to explain how your movie ties into the original MCU film and all the stuff that's come since then.
In really some like cultural correction in a way that I think was necessary through the retconning it does.
I mean, there is, I believe, a like short film where after the release of Iron Man 3, which basically is like the real Mandarin, like further cemented the Trevor Slattery was a prop used by these people. Mm-hmm. There is a real Mandarin out there, which sort of set up the eventual creation of something like Shang-Chi.
Yeah. I will say a lot of hype over the bonus credit scene as being like one of the best ever. It's a bonus credit scene that tells you a little bit of clues what's going next.
Can we just
don't freak out too much about it?
Can we just say it for the people in the back? If you take all, like, I tried one time to rank the MCU credit scenes. I couldn't remember what half of them are.
They're like, just take about trailers.
There are some that are memorable, like I'm the first one for Iron Man. I want to talk about the Avengers Initiative, the introduction of Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. There are some that are memorable. Most of them are not memorable. That one's
bad when you rewatch it. It's good because of like new characters.
No, it's a bad scene, but it's at least memorable. I remembered that one exists. So many of them are just like, a car drives up and there's Thor's hammer. Like some of them are way more interesting than others, and a lot of them are forgettable. But let's jump ahead. We've got another movie to talk about that you also only saw, which is The Card Counter, new Paul Schrader film, which is currently in theaters.
I think this movie is intentionally just like a hard battle with like how do you feel about it. I'm
coming like a Paul Schrader fandom.
It's Paul, it's a very, very Paul Schrader movie in a lot of ways, and I'm coming out, I would say, highly positive, especially with, I think it is like a top tier performance by Oscar Isaac. He brings a lot to the film. I think he's a perfect match for Schrader's style and elevating it a little bit out of the deep, dark depths that Schrader kind of dives in. I think Isaac just has the movie star charisma that can make it a little more lively. When like Ethan Hawke, I think, just like was swimming in those swallows and first performed in a way that I didn't appreciate his performance as much as everyone else. And for some reason, I think Oscar Isaac just has a little bit of a dynamic to play against Schrader, while still when he needs to be in those really fraught, hard moments, he can be super intense and super engaging. But also when you're just like watching him play poker, you got to have a movie star, and he really is. I think the way he can balance movie stardom with kind of dark intensity. There's better words, and I'm very tired. It might be in my Letterboxd review, but it is something that I feel like many other actors probably couldn't bring to the film. It's kind of perfect casting. There's a lot of odd choices for the supporting cast that I think the movie makes you enjoy it in a way that you wouldn't expect, with Tiffany Haddish kind of being the we'll call her love interest. That's not really spoiling, but just within the film, she's kind of set up as a love interest within the film, and Ty Sheridan, coming from, what was his last movie? I thought he was done after Ready Player One, but Ty Sheridan appears as
an X-Men movie. Isn't that his last?
Yeah, maybe. Ty Sheridan, I'm trying to really, I don't want to give too many details because as you find more, even like reveals within the first 10 minutes, I think are still kind of, kept a little secret because you want to kind of dive deeper into that character's soul with the film, and you don't want to know too much. So Ty Sheridan, without spoiling much, is just someone that has connections to Oscar Isaac's past that he kind of takes under his wing and really kind of wants to redeem some of his past sins through how he can treat that character. And as I say, my problem with Paul Schrader, at least with this and First Reformed, not with some of his other movies I've seen, but with those two, is when he wants to go heavy, he hits the nail a little too hard at times. I've talked a lot first before. This is a small moment, but just encapsulates my greater thought is that a movie that's essentially about global warming and climate change and going down this moment of dread and paranoia about it. How you know a character was freaking out is he had the most cliched picture of a polar bear on the frozen ice. Is just like the hardest Nammer hit they can possibly have. And I think the movie doesn't have anything that kind of obvious, but it does just take things a little too far at points that it's kind of like we get the point without. And the ending scene is like really odd. And maybe someone has a really good take with the last shot. I have no idea what that last shot is supposed to mean or why that's included. I don't think it makes it bad because I'm sure there's some kind of explanation. Maybe I'll get it on my 36th watch. I'm going to do the card counter. But anyone who watches card counter 36 times probably needs psychiatric treatment because it is a weird and disturbing movie. In a way that like half it's a poker movie. So it's such a complex chemistry of those things together.
Yeah, I mean, I'd forgotten that the last credit for Ty Sheridan is as just complete dickhead Tommy Matthews in the Madden 21 Face of the Franchise mode. I forgot that was a thing.
I think Ty Sheridan has given 2 top-tier kid performances between Mud and Joe. He's really good in Joe. He was like 17 at that point, but we'll still go to.
He does strike me as an actor who never functionally figured out how to transition from being a child actor to an adult actor.
Yeah.
Like even like you watch his acting as an adult, and it's like you still sort of just look like a kid who's now tall Sarah, and like can grow a beard.
What do you think about Good Will Hunting?
Wonderful.
Okay, she said wonderful. Yeah, continue.
Yeah, Good Will Hunting coming soon.
Sarah's on the episode. She's our guest.
Beautiful.
We'll clip this out and put that in the Good Will Hunting episode.
You're giving me way too much credit. That's the card counter.
I give that to our producer, Michael Campbell.
Yeah. I have no questions about the card counter because I think asking questions would spoil it, and I don't want to spoil it for myself or anyone else.
I'd say yes. It's not a twisty movie per se, but it has layers to the character that are best discovered with it.
All right, let's do a couple movies that I saw and you didn't, but are interested in. The Killing of Two Lovers, which is on Hulu since September 10th. This is a story about a family. They have 3 children, husband and wife. They've been married for a while. They're currently experiencing some like marital problems, and they've decided that they're going to work through it, but they also can see other people in the meantime. And the wife starts seeing somebody, and the husband can't deal with it. And sort of it's just it's a very traditional relationship drama in structure and form, but it features one of the most anxiety-producing scenes ever. I left this scene, my stomach tied in knots, and I couldn't sleep. It was kind of almost traumatic in how much it ramped up your anxiety. I won't go into details beyond that. Really strong emotional drama. I think worth watching. It's also really short, super tight movie. I dare anyone to not be emotionally or physically affected by this film. That's all.
It kind of sounds like some Zack stuff, and I'm excited. I kind of forgot this existed before I looked at my watch list, and then looked that you also happen to see it. But I must have heard good things for me to add it. But it is kind of.
I believe it has like 96%. I believe it came out and has like 96% or something. It was very well reviewed. It's a very small film, but it was very well reviewed.
You said short, tight, and emotionally involving. That sounds like stuff I want.
Yeah, it's like 84 minutes long. Let's keep going.
It's like 8 minutes longer than many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, so I don't know if I can do
it. All right, Cry Macho. This is probably the biggest one I watched that Zack didn't get around to.
I might never watch this, honestly.
Here's the honest truth. You don't need to watch this movie. And not because it's bad. I gave it 3 out of 5. This is the classic modern Clint Eastwood movie. Outside of a couple films where he takes some bigger swings, Clint Eastwood just... I don't know why he's still making movies. He's 91 years old. He has like these screenplays that are like half-baked. He does one take of everything. You can tell because the movies read like they took one take. This movie has no point. This is like Clint Eastwood works for Dwight Yoakam and wants him to go get his kid. There's just nothing here. You watch this entire movie and you're like, is there going to be a profound sequence? Is something interesting going to happen? Is something cool going to happen? No, it's a modern Clint Eastwood movie. It's a nothing screenplay. It's not really anything interesting to say. He's a good enough actor at this point, and he's been doing it for long enough that he can sort of shoot himself doing anything in one take and be fine. He casts a bunch of nobodies around him. They're not particularly good. I genuinely to continue my process of daring people. I dare anyone to have a strong reaction to this movie, either like really hate it or really love it. I just don't think anyone's going to be that. I think everyone's going to end up in like the 3-star range or plus or minus a star in either direction.
He's also 90. Isn't his family like worried about him going out and making films? My stepmom talks to me all the time how she worries her like 85-year-old dad drives for like an hour. That freaks her out. But they're like, he's going to go film a movie for 30 days on set all day. And this big kids are like, yeah, that sounds cool. Which brings me up to the most important question we'll ask all night. Who's more likely to die while filming a movie? Clint Eastwood or Tom Cruise?
Tom Cruise, 100%.
I'm gonna put my money that Clint Eastwood just like passes out with a heart attack in the middle of filming his like third movie in a year.
Here's the thing:
at age 95.
Clint Eastwood would never do anything in his movies that would elevate his heart rate to the point where he'd have a heart attack.
At his age, walking does that.
He barely walks in these movies, though. Like he barely does anything. Like there's nothing. And it's honestly kind of frustrating because you have these moments in these.
Fuck a bunch of hookers in the mule. I think that would give him a heart.
He does, and in this film, another like woman who's 50 years younger than him tries to bone him. It's a weird. I can't tell if he's doing this or people just writing like scenes knowing that that'll make him like it. Yeah, it's a fine movie.
He only picks movies based on like who he gets to fuck.
No, I think he picks. I think he has this weird trend in like sort of not PC old dude who was like very blue collar. Like that's the movie. It's all the movies he makes recently. And then he does stuff like, Richard Jewell, which is like deeply concerning and like the choices that it makes, or like something like 15 to 17 Paris, which is just absolute dog shit. But besides that, his movies are like, I think two things. One, I think he should stop acting in his own movies. I think his recent decent stuff is a little, I guess, well, okay. When he acts, his movies are consistently mediocre. When he directs but doesn't act, his movies have a little bit wider of a gap. Sometimes they're really sucking. Sometimes they're good. I don't know. He's going to do this for 10 more years. He's going to make 3 out of 5-star movies for the next 10 years.
And I'm going to watch. I think I'm done. Unless for some reason like Tom Hanks gets another one. I think Richard Jewell might be my last one I watched, and I really despise that movie. I love Sully. It's the only good movie I like that he's made in the past 10 years. I never watched Gran Torino, and I didn't watch this because I really have no interest in what Clint Eastwood has to say about Mexican-American relations and immigration. I don't need
this movie.
Isn't there a little bit of that in this?
No, he has. It's actively thumbing its nose at sort of the conservative ideology around immigration.
Okay, I just don't want to even hear him talk about immigration, though.
It's not even about immigration, if we're being completely honest.
Okay.
It has almost nothing to. Yeah, I don't know.
You changed my mind.
I've seen almost all his movies since, like 2000, except for like 3 or 4 outliers.
Do you know what else I don't want to see this movie? Because the name is stupid. The name is so stupid, and I can't take it seriously.
Do you want to know what Macho is in the movie? Do you know what it is?
It's not machismo.
Macho is the name of a chicken.
No. I heard there's like cockfighting in this.
The kid he has to go get has like a pet cock he likes to fight or something. I don't know.
Should I try to raise Theo into the cockfighting rings? Make him
please don't do that.
Cockfighter, at least a bookie for cockfights.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's math.
I think my largest statement out of this movie is it is such a Clint Eastwood film of recent years, and like, there's a lot of people who like to congratulate him on his efficiency and one take philosophy, and I think it's stupid because it's not producing great movies, and there's a reason people do takes and give actors chances to do stuff. It's because oftentimes you get a much better performance and a much better movie when you let your actors try more than one time.
Unless you're Tom Hanks landing a plane in Hudson.
Right. But that's the problem.
Did the plane only take one take? They're like, you get one crash and we move on.
Yeah, you got to just I don't know. You got to cast Tom Hanks, or otherwise let people do more than take. It's stupid. I don't know. Not necessarily saying you have to do 100 takes like some crazy people, but 10 takes is, I think, a reasonable number. It doesn't take that much time. Yeah, try Macho. Thoroughly mediocre. Watch if you want. I say the weirdest thing is like I can't even like it's so weird watching. This is like the most meh of his movies. Like recently, I either walk out of his movies being like that was good or like I fucking hated that. And this is the movie where just like I don't really have a take either direction. Let's switch to a completely different person. The Mad Woman's Ball, which is on Amazon Prime, is a movie directed by and co-starring or supporting actor starring Melanie Laurent, who is probably most famous for her role in
Beginners. Got it.
I was going to say Inglourious Bastards, but yes, we can count Beginners as well. Yeah. It's hard to talk about this movie without revealing spoilers. I just want to I'm trying to check if you Google how much information. Yeah. So essentially it's about a woman who can hear spirits, can hear ghosts, and then gets assigned to a mental hospital shortly after the death of author Victor Hugo. Weirdly, she's at Victor Hugo's funeral in the opening scene. And then it's sort of a commentary on how the mental health profession has treated women. I mean, up until the recent addendum to the DSM, the book of basically all the diagnoses, there was all these like women's problems and hysteria things that were in there. And it's a commentary on sort of how mental health professionals have treated women and also how abusive sometimes the medical industrial complex is to female patients who are detained within it because of whatever condition they faced. I would just say that it's a very strong idea. It's a very strong premise. It's a strong thesis. It's a strong concept. And you kind of spend the entire movie going, is it going to happen now? Like you spend the entire movie going, is it going to click now? Is it going to click now? And it never really does. And it's not a terrible movie. I'm interested to see more of Melanie Laurent directing because I do think she has, I think, a pretty decent visual style.
Have you seen any of her other films?
I don't believe so. Let me give it a quick check. No, this is the first directorial movie from her I've seen. But yeah, I think she should keep directing. I just think that next time, if you're going to have an idea as strong as this, make sure you get to a point at the end of your movie where I'm like, oh, that was a profound statement. And I'm really glad I watched that because this one, a little bit kind of disappointing in that didn't really have anything to say.
She's like weirdly not prolific, but like she has like 6 movies.
I mean, it's really prolific considering that like she doesn't really have a recognizable career in the eyes of American audiences before 2009.
I didn't know half these movies existed. And one I seen was an earlier one, 2014, which is Breathe.
Yeah, I've never heard any of them.
Another one's like some of the direction's interesting. And like the acting was strong, but there's still something like a little missing to make it step up to the next level of something that I can remember more 7 years later.
Yeah, I wonder if this is sort of a consistent shortcoming of her where she has good ideas and then just doesn't always nail the final point. Let's jump ahead to the movies. We're going to finally talk some spoilers, talk some details in the movies we've seen. We've both seen Worth, which is the movie where Michael Keaton plays Kenneth Feinberg, whose job is to figure out how to compensate the victims and their families of the 9/11 tragedy in such a way that they don't all sue the airlines and basically bankrupt an entire industry. Amy Ryan plays sort of his co-worker and co-partner, and then Stanley Tucci plays the partner of someone who died on that day, who is sort of the antagonist to them.
Yeah, and like the leader of a opposing advocacy group. And really great performance, honestly.
I mean, it's Stanley freaking Tucci. The man is always.
I thought you were about to go against that when you said, "Man, no, it's."
No, he's always good. It's like it's like I don't know if I would like
forget. I always think he's going to be like a little too exaggerated. And I forget he can really tone it down and give such real human performances. I mean, he was really good in the movie with Colin Firth, Supernova, as well. Gave a pretty lovely performance, and so yeah, it's a good, secretly a really good year for just remembering how lovely he can be on screen.
I mean, and speaking of like performances that very much in line with what we think of the actors, this is a very, very, very typical recent Michael Keaton performance.
Yeah,
very much in line with
in like the
Trial of
Spotlight
Chicago,
vein.
the Founder, Spotlight, Trial of Chicago 7. Like this is all sort of like the playing real life people sort of. You know, it's a good performance. It's not something you're gonna be like, oh my god, that's groundbreaking or anything. That's sort of the movie.
I think the character is kind of weird because I feel like they want to make it seem like he needs so much more growth than he does. There's like one line that say maybe his intentions had some level of ego to it that he kind of admits to, but for the most part, like you're seeing him take on a task that he knows is going to be challenging, and for all we see, with the best intentions in mind. Like he is doing it because he wants to help out and to give something back to these people that he really feels for and empathizes with their tragedy. And they make his growth really has to be from going away from having to be so strict about the logistics of his job and the kind of rules that go with it, with having a little bit of leeway to the real tragedy and varied stories that these people have, which sure they make it seem, but they also make it seem like he has to have some sort of like philosophical growth. Like he is also didn't have the ability to empathize with people, which isn't really shown on screen. Like he always was doing it for the right reasons. If he was going in fully cynical and lawyerish, which is how they try to paint him at the end, like he is just really uptight lawyer that doesn't understand human feelings, then that growth would be seen. But he isn't seen that way. They just kind of try to say it near the end.
Yeah. I mean, I think fundamentally the conflict of the movie is that what he is trying to do from the beginning is the right thing from a logic standpoint, and that logically it makes sense that you would create a plan and a rubric and then build it out so you can be as fair as possible and evaluate all cases with exactly the same way. And the thing that the movie is sort of saying is that you can't evaluate the worth of human life the way you can the value of a car or the value of property. Like human beings are more complicated and have more nuance. Like you can't evaluate everything on the same level because you have to figure out, just because somebody is a CEO doesn't mean their life is worth more than, a janitor. If that janitor is the sole breadwinner versus, somebody else, or like this movie also has to grapple with the fact that at the time, if you were in a homosexual relationship, you don't get anything because in the eyes of the law and the eyes of the states you're from, you guys are just people who live together. You have no greater meaning under the law. And so the movie is asked to, his system is asked to take on a lot. And I think it's a very good Keaton performance in a very traditional movie. Like this is a movie that is always going to be enjoyable because the nature of like, we like to see dramatized past historical events. But like this movie is not in any way trying to be anything more than just like a very simple but effective retelling.
Like inspirational is not the right word, but a moving based on true story to kind of, once again, remember to be empathetic of people's experiences and people's tragedies, just that kind of journey. But one more point I want to make, another problem I have, because all the stories that you kind of mentioned, when they investigate those cases, is all very engaging, very interesting, very moving. But the one that they tend to focus on the most delves into this weird kind of soap opera melodrama in a way that I think clashes with the seriousness of the rest of the film. I don't really get the point of what that character's
it's a bit
issues really had to do with the rest of the movie. It really seemed like it took away from what the rest of the movie was trying to say.
I don't know if it was like
they need a plot. I think that's why they're like, can we have some kind of more intriguing drama to add to the plot?
Yeah. It's such a weird.
I assume you know what I'm talking about. about without.
You're talking about there's a certain plot,
the wife of a firefighter.
The infidelity subplot. There's a like subplot about infidelity, and yeah, it's a very like weird one because they start off being like, we don't want anything, and then yeah, I think the problem with it is it doesn't feel they don't feel like human beings. That story like is the one where the people don't feel like normal everyday humans. They always seem either too big emotionally or too shut down emotionally, and it's a weird like there's that
the issues they're facing are more their own personal flaws rather than the flaws of the system, which is what the rest of the movie is focusing on.
Yes. Like that is, yeah, it's the one. I think that the plot with the gay couple is actually one of the more effective ones. I think because especially because it's one of those ones where in the modern context, you would never consider that being a problem. But then you do have to put yourself in the mindset, yeah, in 2001, that would have been a huge problem. And like, you just never, you don't think of that now because we've changed so much in so little time. But also like, yeah, that would have been a huge problem.
It's pushed aside. With that's like kind of Amy Ryan's like subplot is her handling that case, and she's giving, I think, can compete with Stanley Tucci for the best performance of the movie because she really gets the two scenes to really kind of kill the emotional reactions and the take the toll like on her psyche that this has been having on her and dealing with the situations. But hearing her having to call him at the end to tell her the outcome of the case. Was one of the most heartbreaking and real moments of the movie.
Yeah, and Amy Ryan has always been somebody who is very good at like grounded kind of emotional performances like this. This feels very in line with other stuff you've seen her in.
It's not a grounded performance. Her and Gone Baby Gone. It's a great movie. Her performance is not grounded. It is another planet.
That is true. She's a bit crazy in that one. Yeah, I like Amy Ryan. Always weirdly good in everything. Yeah, it's Worth. Worth is like we talked about this recently. Like Worth is like a perfect 7 out of 10 movie. That is what it's
really solid Netflix watch.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of people who are going to like this. It'll not end up. It won't and shouldn't.
You know who's going to love it? Everyone over the age of 50.
Really, yeah. It really shouldn't end up in your.
I sent you this in my text message. Really wanted to talk to me. I did not see her at this point. She was very disappointed.
Right? Yeah, you told me about this.
My stepmother, who has seen one movie. I think this might be the only movie she's seen that isn't Christmas based, or as I found out today, Moonstruck, which I guess she's watched 100 times. This is the only movie she has watched other than Worth in the past 5 years.
It is interesting though that because of the COVID pandemic, this movie got pushed back and then was able to be released right at the moment of the 20th year anniversary of 9/11, which was, I think, honestly, a moment where a lot of Americans would have been more, because this movie doesn't work 10 years ago or 15 years ago. You need the gap from these events to be able to kind of delve into this world without it being as traumatic as it would have been, in past years.
Yeah.
Worth. It's on Netflix. All right. We're going to end it with our favorite movie of the month we will saw, which is Riders of Justice. It's on Hulu. Riders of Justice is a movie.
Name is really funny, I think, in retrospect. I don't know why. Because it kind of is antithetical to the movie itself. It makes it seem like the revenge thriller that it was sold.
I actually kind of love the way they sold this and the way it was sold and way it marketed and sort of what it played into and then how it actually ended up being. So, Riders of Justice is a film where Mads Mikkelsen is an army officer and his wife is killed in an explosion on the train. And he is 3 guys, 3 techie hacker dudes with all their own baggage come to help him.
They're all like statistical analysis kind of people, right?
They're statisticians, yeah, essentially, yeah.
Yeah, they're trying to
computer science. They're building
algorithms.
A lot of algorithms and stuff. And they come to him and say, we don't think this was an accident. We think this was actually an attack. And they start hunting it down. And there's a sort of biker gang Riders of Justice in the country. And sort of you think this is going to be a Mads Mikkelsen revenge thriller in the vein of the Liam Neeson films.
And the way they show him too, being this shaved head, really built military guy that can definitely kick some ass. And you do see him.
He does get a couple scenes.
but it's also in a different light. It's not the like hurrah hurrah hell yeah kicking ass that you kind of thought the movie was going to be. It's really toying with that Liam Neeson-esque character. It's really kind of saying something against that kind of persona.
Yeah, I mean, the movie is really just all about trauma. It's about the
Yeah.
trauma of losing your wife, the trauma of losing your mom. These three, statistician, computer science guys all have like all these past traumas, and they talk about it in these like kind of wonderful European like emotional sequences where they're just like sitting around the table talking about like why they are the people they are today. You learn really quickly, like you see that these three guys are all very damaged either physically or mentally, like they have real hangups, but there's a weird camaraderie between the three of them where they've all learned about they have abrasiveness and fights with each other, but they also have these moments where they know how to calm the other ones down, like even as simple as just like weird. There's like one of the guys does this thing where he runs his hands along the other guy's spine, and like that helps him calm down and
Really
like
there for each
center
other.
himself again. It's a really to me it was very much like an anxiety controlling technique, trying to center the person back in. um Mads is just fantastic, and this guy named Nicolas Lacasse is, I think, just he
Just
plays
like
this
the
character,
second lead of the movie in a way.
and he is I just stunning. I genuinely wish this movie would receive the same level of notoriety in the U.S. as it did in Denmark. It actually beat Another Round for the highest box office opening.
It easily can compete with another. I like this better than Another Round.
I think I have slightly had two. Yeah. Um, it's less of a mad showcase performance as Another Round is, but
Yeah,
Nicolas Lacasse
this is
should be nominated / potentially win Best Supporting Actor. I think he's that good.
maybe not winning, but he does get
He's
some
so
great
good.
scenes to bring the kind of emotional themes to the front, and also this movie is like really funny, and
Very
so
funny.
the moments he gets to kind of be the like nerdy statistician, and kind of caught in this high stakes action revenge plot is still kind of really funny. Yeah, and then you get shocked by his kind of moments of true grief and
He has a
um,
wonderful scene with the daughter. He has a wonderful scene with
insight.
Mads.
Yeah,
So
because
good.
he becomes the insightful one. He's almost the hero of the movie to kind of help the other, like help Mads come to terms with it in a more realistic way. Because it is kind of judging that I said that Liam Neeson kind of character for their idea of getting over their grief being to take physical revenge. This is not seen as a heroic act in this movie. We're not spoiler talks yet, so we'll just keep it at that. Um, but it's seen as like a irrational way for him to deal with that grief. Because I mean, I think this movie is very thematically rich. I think we're just talking about in terms of grief, but there's also in terms of violence and inherited violence. As the daughter really kind of worries about how that's going to affect, her development. Is she going
Yeah.
to act just like her father? Because you watch how even with her boyfriend, his first reaction is always this violence that he's kind of been trained to react with by the military. And Taken, that violence is what brings him out of his grief. His trained violence helps him save the day and bring reckoning to the people that cause him such pain. And that violence is almost dooming him in this forever cycle of looking for revenge and never being able to come across it in a way that's so intelligent and not expected with what I thought this movie was doing. It is not a thriller, it is a true emotional drama, despite
Yeah.
the name being Writers of Justice.
Which means multiple things in the context of the film. I will say the two big things is when you compare it to the Neeson movies, this movie plays off all the violence in one of two ways. It's either seen as horrifically traumatic to the people who had to witness the violence, or like ridiculous and stupid and like how did that just happen. There's a sort of ridiculousness to all the violence and be like, what on earth did we just do?
Yeah.
And
And even in moments when the violence does kind of come off harsh, we as an audience know that the violence in terms is kind of meaningless and pointless to where we still are kind of judging them for those actions.
Yeah, and I also think there's a moment in the film where the daughter's boyfriend has this line about how when trauma happens, people resort to the thing that is like fundamentally defines them. So his example is the yoga person who gets who is traumatized, goes through the trauma by yoga. So you sort of see how everyone in this movie, Mads resorts to just violence in his military training, and these nerds like resort to like running a billion algorithms and fighting about the probability, calculus and like what's the threshold that will actually allow, it's like basically just, it's really simple probability testing. It's really simple confidence interval testing. It's just classic, just really basic, simple statistics, but like fighting about like the really minutia of them.
And everyone's a way to articulate their emotions is through those things, because it is a running joke, but also emotionally impactful. Is that every time, I'm not going to remember his name, but the side character or any of his buddies have motions of or moments of real emotional insight. They're all articulated at first through a series of statistical evaluations of things, and sometimes a little misguided, and it's like approach to the character's not always light-footed in its approach, but always once he gets to the point of what this means, it's super resonant in a way that's interesting.
Yeah, I would also like to, while we're mentioning it, Lars Brygman and Nicholas Bro are the other two actors that make up the four Riders of Justice. Yeah. Everyone in this movie is great, like really, really, really good. And I was shocked by how emotional this movie made me. From like, there's like scenes in this film of, a character walking along the side of the road where you feel from the final scene, the final sequence of the film, when a certain trauma the character had spoken about being taken away from them is returned to them, and they get their triumphant moment. It brought tears to my eyes. I was like incredibly emotionally connected to these men. And the thing is, watching them, they're just so vulnerable in their own traumas and like the way they've had to deal with them and how they've been hurt by the world. And you as an audience are just absolutely sucked in to everything they're doing. This movie is like amazing. Like I knew I was going to like this because it's, I
thought you were going to like it because it was going to be a Liam Neeson-esque revenge thriller with one of your favorite actors, Mads Mikkelsen.
I legitimately thought going into this was going to be The Ice Road or was Honest Thief. These are like the Neeson movies of recent years. I thought that was what we were going for, and I was just blown away. It's my currently right now. It's my number 2 movie of the year.
I don't love it as much as you do, but I do like it. It's my favorite movie of the month, which I said I wanted to highlight as we do these shows from now on.
Yeah.
This would easily, I think, be the pick.
Yeah, and and I cannot say this enough. If you have Hulu, go watch this movie.
Yeah.
This movie is legitimately great.
And it's fun, too. We made it sound like it's a drudge.
No, it's emotional and funny and has like... Mads Mikkelsen doing a John Wick scene.
Of action, like real action moments. We said it's kind of
there's like John Wick-esque moments in this film. You get people fighting about little statistic stuff. Always fun for everyone.
And just super smart and deeper than this movie has any right to be. There's a lot of ideas about coincidence and how it kind of rules our life in a way that I find always interesting. It's one of my favorite things throughout movies. They handle that at the right level, and they bookend it with a couple scenes that so smartly connect to that point. That was this all controlled by a bike?
Yeah, it is
a bike.
Yeah, that is such a European. The specific opening, the specific ending is such a European film thing. That's wonderful. Yeah, this movie is way better than it ever should have been. I was absolutely blown away.
And are you fully on now Mads Mikkelsen, top 5 actors of the past 20 years for you?
So so this is something I was thinking about when I was watching this. No, genuinely. The problem with Mads Mikkelsen is he is great when he is working in Danish films. Mm-hmm. And every time he comes to the US, it's not that he's bad, it's that he just gets shit roles.
He's often villains because they just see his very European face.
But even like Rogue One and Doctor Strange, so he's the villain in one, he's the dad in the other. They're just both nothing roles.
He's good in Rogue One.
I like him, but it's a nothing role. It's just frustrating how no one has ever done with him what Vinterberg and what's this gentleman's name that I want?
Casino Royale was the best idea of what he could be in a blockbuster Hollywood system.
Yes, and then since then he's been just getting inferior versions.
Well, yeah, I mean, people love him on Hannibal, but this is not a TV podcast.
I've never watched Hannibal, but I hear great things, and I do want to watch someday. Yeah, Anders Thomas Jensen, the director, is just. I think that there's just something about Mikkelsen that he is just very European as a performer, and he fits in European movies just much better than he does in American stuff.
Yeah, and honestly, never could like even Casino Royale. He's kind of still like a sniveling little brat villain, and not someone super intimidating for his body. But he brings in the first 5 minutes of this movie, just his posture and how he looks is kind of almost like a Liam Neeson makeover. Like he is very intimidating.
Yeah, his fury is palpable and impressive. Yeah, Mads Mikkelsen, the absolute man. Please just keep making wonderful Danish films with this guy. I will watch 500 Danish movies either with this guy or Anders Thomas Jensen or Thomas Vinterberg.
Should we go back in the catalog of this director's movies? I feel like, at least from this movie, it seems like he has a lot of things to say and a lot of skill. I guess this is a director's movie in a lot of ways.
It is. I've never seen it. I've never even heard of any of the movies he's directed before. That's the problem.
No, that's why I say we gotta explore the past. January, Anders Thomas Jensen month. Calling him now. I've seen Man and Chicken. It is a weird, dark comedy. If you just take the moments of them faking a therapy and add weird, like genetically deformed people to it, that's what that movie is.
Wow, he did a lot of work in short film.
Also,
for a really long time. Okay, I've seen movies he helped as a script consultant on, but I've never seen anything that he full on worked on.
Well, we all know I'm better than you because I've seen Man and Chicken.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
He's an Oscar winner, interestingly enough. 1998 for best live action short film.
It doesn't work too much because it was like 2005, then 2015, then 2020.
Well, if you look at his Wikipedia, he has a bunch of stuff in the meantime where he is writing or acting, dialogue, helping script consultant, helping with characters. Like he seems to do a lot of behind the scenes work. Like he's not always the top of the food chain on all his movies.
Maybe this will rejuvenate his career because I mean you made it seem like it was pretty successful in Denmark.
I think it was quite successful in Denmark.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like he's also he's worked with Mikkelsen before.
Man and Chicken.
Well, also he worked with him on a movie called Adam's Apples. Yeah, this is like Mikkelsen, somebody that I feel like he has a movie supposedly coming up. He's working on a movie as a writer. Yeah, it looks like he takes a while off to do. Like he does several script, in between this one and Men and Chicken. He did 3 movies where he wrote the script, 2 and then 3 things where he was a script consultant. So he does a lot of work in between.
Nicholas Bro, who plays Emmentaler in this movie, is also in Men and Chicken as like his weird deformed big fat brother. I
believe he's also in War Horse.
War Horse? Where's my War Horse? It's like the only SNL thing I quote, and no one cares about that sketch at all anymore. But it's the best SNL quote. Where is my War Horse? Oh, I got to offer for the show tonight.
All right. With that, I think we are done for the evening with your new movie roundup. We hope you enjoyed our discussion of all this things. We hope we didn't spoil anything, and we hope that you go out and check out these movies, especially Riders of Justice, because it's fantastic.
Yeah, and Card Count is really good. Watch that too.
I mean, yeah, I think everything in this month outside of
Mad One's those 2 movies.
Mad One's Ball and Cry Macho, you probably skipped. The rest of them I think are worth checking out. Yeah, and we will be back soon with our discussion of Matt Damon.
Going to get deeper and longer because movies are about to come out, my friend.
Yeah, it was a bit of a dry month. October is absolutely loaded. So we'll be back at the end of October to break down what we saw in October. We'll see you then. Good night, folks. Check out our normally scheduled productions coming soon. Yeah.
Good night. Good luck. I love you. No good riddance. Not main pod.